Thinking about when I graduated in high school from Lakewood High, and I thought, I'm not going to tell you what that was.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now I understand the dramatic pause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. 3, 2, here we go.
Yo, welcome to the Bub and Bob Show, where we talk about faith, culture, and all kinds of other things from a Christian worldview. I'm Bub Coons, and over there somewhere in the dark is Bob Matozian.
How you doing, Bob?
You know, I'm doing good. Anything to say, or?
You know, I think you better be on your best behavior today.
Oh, I should be.
Yes, we have a very special
guest.
Very special
That's true,
guest.
so I'll get right into it.
All right.
Our guest today is the CEO and founder of the Obria Group. She is a leader and a pioneer when it comes to women's care, and she is a warrior on the front lines of the pro-life battle. She's been fighting hard for over 35 years. This is the dauntless and dedicated Kathleen Eaton Bravo. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to the Bub and Bob Show.
I'm so glad to be here.
So glad that you can join us. What we like to do at the beginning is to kind of get the lay of the land and figure out who you were before you came to faith in God. What was it like being raised by your family, and then what happened when we get into your testimony. Then we're going to switch into what you're passionate about, which we both know what that is. It's
Yes.
Obria and what you're doing, but.
Yes.
We got all kinds of time. We're not in a hurry, but tell me how you grew up.
Born and raised in just outside Seattle to Patrick and Patricia O'Brien, Irish Catholic family, 6 kids. I have 3 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. At 13 years old, my father's gambling had totally taken control of his life.
Wow.
And so the beautiful home that they had built was gone. He embezzled money from the company he worked for, was running. He was a smart man, but really
Smart embezzler.
Yes, yeah. But it was, the sort of in my, my culture, the Irish culture is he lived up to his name. Patrick O'Brien
Yes,
was a
sounds
gambler,
like it.
knew every pony, was at the track. In fact, as little kids, Mom thought that if Dad took all the kids on a Saturday that he wouldn't go to the racetrack. And let me tell you, we knew everything about the racetrack. Yeah. 3 boys and me, and Dad would go inside and we'd climb on top of the cars and watch the horses go by. And needless to say, I've never been to a racetrack since I grew up.
It seemed like it wasn't fun at the time. I mean,
Well, it was fun with your brothers. And then we were behind, a couple of the bars, his favorite hideout.
yeah,
So they, same thing. Mom thought, well, he's got the kids, so he's not going to do anything. Well, we just played an alley. You did kick the can, and
nothing's going to stop him. Apparently,
so we grew up in. I grew up in the alleys behind the bars and the racetrack.
Wow.
Long Acres up there. It's not there anymore. And life was pretty much that type of a life. We grew up. We took care of ourselves. They had 2 more girls after me, so 6 of us. And then one day, I remember it was a Sunday, and we were at the park, and I saw my mom and dad sitting on one of the picnic tables on the bench far, ways off, and my brothers were running around, and Mom was crying. Now you have to understand, my mother never raised her voice, never argued, never fought, never. She was very meek. In many ways, as I got older, I resented that, and we had a really bad relationship because I wanted her to fight. I guess because I'm a warrior, maybe that's where it comes from, but. I knew something was going on. What it was he was kind of embezzling money from his company that he was running, this other man's company, and
that was to support his habits and gambling.
Of course,
and that was what
he took money out of the company and more money, and the owner of the company found it, and he was let go. And he, unbelievably, didn't send him to jail, but told him to get out of the state of Washington. So we moved to California, and that was sort of my.
Get out of my town, and it was serious. He got out of town.
Yes,
Wow.
And so we ended up in Lakewood, California.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm guessing Christmas and Easter when you went to church, or was you got to go to mass or nothing?
No. My mother marched us into church every Sunday.
So you all were repenting for your dad's.
We were, and he was there.
He was there.
Oh
okay.
yes, they were. So she just accepted that this was her life.
Okay.
And but as we grew older, so we moved from this beautiful home in Seattle that they had built to I think 1,000 square foot the typical Lakewood little
Right.
box house,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
3 bedrooms.
Exactly. Yeah.
With, mom and dad, 6 kids. And then a cousin moved in, Jerry. And so then there was 7 of us. And then grandma moved in. So there was,
What?
yeah. So
That is
it was
crazy.
I mean, 6, 7, 8, 9 of us. So anyway, there was 10 of us. And, I had a washing machine, but no dryer. So hanging the clothes out on the line. And,
I can't even imagine
yeah.
that anymore. We're just
And
so spoiled.
so, but
that's-
every Sunday we went to church. As we grew older, Mom decided to go. We were Catholic. She'd go to the 7 a.m. mass, but we always went. And so she would tell Dad, well, you've got to take the kids to the 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And Dad would drop us off at the church, and we'd go in, and he said, "Now listen to the homily and let me know who's saying the mass."
So he can answer sometime during the week.
So he
for you.
did, and get the bulletin.
Yes.
So we would go in to mass, and then at the end of mass, he'd pick us up. We'd hand him the bulletin, who said the mass, what was the homily, and we'd tell him,
Wow.
and he'd go home, and
Very
then
guilty.
he'd
He was
pretend,
like-
and he'd tell Mom, here's the thing. Father so and so said this. At that time in my life, we were, I was getting my clothes from the clothing shop at the church, and our groceries were coming from the
Okay.
church pantry, and we had nothing. We rented this little house. There was cardboard on a lot of the windows, and so needless to say, I just ran. So at 15, I moved in with a friend whose parents were just as crazy.
15. Okay.
And then at 17, just before my 17th birthday, I rented my first apartment and never looked back.
Fantastic.
And I
So-
walked away from my faith, any faith in God.
Well,
Nothing.
I don't know if it was a firm foundation that was there when you had the model
You
of your
think?
dad. But I mean, did anything take? Like when you were there, did you acknowledge that there was a God and that Christ is real, or was it just like
No.
nothing? Just it was just
No,
time to sit and be quiet.
we went to Catholic school up till 8th grade, and then I went 2 years after actually high school to an all girls Catholic school. Met my best friends there,
Yep.
but
Nothing stuck,
there
really.
was nothing in. I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah.
it. So obviously there was just nothing that I could go back and know when, I would be praying or,
Well,
my
maybe-
mother was the devout Irish Catholic mom. And I mean, even in the evenings, we would all come together and kneel and pray the rosary in the evening.
Wow.
But I remember,
Yeah.
but I had a very angry, I was a very angry young woman when I finally left against my father for being who he was
Okay.
and drunk and gambling.
house and all
and
your
my
stability,
mother, I was more angry at her that she didn't fight.
Wow. What about
And
your other
so-
siblings? Were they just okay with their? Were you
Sadly-
the fighter?
I was the fighter.
Okay.
Sadly, people that know my family look at me and say, "How did you ever raise yourself up out of that
How'd you
family
get
and
up?"
become?" They actually say that. I mean, people that have known
Okay. Yeah.
my family even to this day.
Sure.
And so you can imagine how I shifted my life
Yep.
into, first and foremost, I felt like I was Scarlett O'Hara, in Gone
Sure.
with the Wind, and she pulled the carrot out when she finally got Tara back,
yeah.
and she held it up and said, "As God is my witness, I will never go hungry again."
Yeah.
And mine was, "As God is my witness, I will never be poor again."
Okay.
And I just, was going to college, got a job with Pac Bell, and became AT&T. Started moving up
Wow,
the corporate
yeah.
ladder. Got through 3 years of college and left that. I was actually. You'll enjoy this.
Yeah.
So, back in those days, this shows you how old I am.
Those days, yeah. Let's just
those
keep it there.
days.
Yeah, that era.
So AT&T, that's when the EEOC or, women
Yes.
have to go out and
Yep.
do the non-traditional job. So I'm in the corporate offices in Southern California here. And my boss came to me, a general manager, and says, "We'd like you to go out and run a splicing crew." It's never heard of a woman. And I looked at him and I said, "What are you, nuts?" And I said, "Why me?" And he goes, "We just think that you have the tenacity
Yeah.
and the," what? I said, "What? Pain in the you-know-what?"
Yeah.
attitude. And I said, "Well, if you pay me what you're paying those foremen
I
out
love
there,
it.
I'm going to do it." I said, "What do I have to do?" He goes, "Well, you have to climb a 40-foot and a 50-foot pole,
Look fine.
with gaps in your,
Sure.
in your leg, and women's bodies really aren't made
No,
to,
a little different.
to
Yeah,
climb
yeah.
telephone
So,
poles.
Kathleen, I was a TSP. When they were moving men inside and women outside,
Yes.
I became a TSPS operator.
Seriously.
Yes, I did.
What is that?
Well, she knows what it is.
Well, I don't know what it is. So you didn't climb the poles and she was.
Exactly.
Okay.
They wanted the girls
So
to...
the big switch, they were trying, okay,
Yeah.
equality for
Yeah.
all, I get it. But
Yes.
you fought for the wages.
I did.
Which I thought was great. Did you get it?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I did.
Oh,
I
oh.
climbed those poles and I went down manholes. I hate spiders. And
Oh,
I went
yeah.
down manholes and mucked manholes and spliced cable. And then I had my first crew. And then one crew ended
amazing.
up being 6 crews. And then I moved up the corporate ladder and ended up in their corporate offices in San Francisco. And I never looked back. I realized
cool.
that this was, so basically my dream, I had a beautiful home.
Yeah.
I had a 1-year-old child, a little boy, Christopher. I had a beautiful home, and the marriage fell apart. And so I sold the house, took Christopher. The two of us were together, and pretty much my life went down there. So I met a man.
Okay.
He made me laugh.
After the marriage
After
was
the
over.
marriage,
Okay.
we weren't officially
Okay, so
divorced,
just
but
done
I'm
now.
alone.
Yeah.
And he went back to his parents, and by this time, I'm in my mid-20s, and so I just took my son and I just changed my lifestyle. And basically, I didn't have God in my life.
Right.
And so at that point, I had the BMW and had my condo,
Yeah.
and my son was in daycare, and I had the nice clothes, and I just thought I was on top of the world. This was my dream. And
Sure.
at 28 years old, I found myself in an unplanned pregnancy. And my son was 3 years old. And so I just never thought about it.
Yeah.
And back then, to show you how old I am again, you go to the yellow pages to look, and the only thing there was Planned Parenthood. So I was actually out on a job one day, checking up on a couple crews on a big job, and was in my, company car, and across the street was Planned Parenthood. And so I went in, and they showed me these 2 little PowerPoints of a uterus and said, oh, it's just going to be heavy bleeding and blah, blah, blah. So they couldn't schedule me that day, and they were going to schedule me the next day, and I left. And then the next day, I ended up at a Family Planning Associates. It was closer to my office, and they are the for-profit abortion here in California.
Right.
And walked in the front door and walked out the back door. It was horrible. I had no meds because I drove myself there. So it was 15 to 20 minutes of screaming pain. And I was screaming. I remember the only thing the doctor said was to the nurse, pinch her leg so she'll quit screaming. So she'll concentrate
transfer
on that
the pain.
pain.
Yeah.
And it sort of worked, but didn't work. And I was moved into the back room, and literally was mattresses on the floor. I laid there.
This is when
and wept.
lots of women died then.
A lot of women died then.
Back.
And this man was just a butcher.
Yeah.
And then
So what kind? Did they ask questions? Did they do? Or did they
Nothing.
just say no, pay for it? And
Nothing at all. They never said a word to me. They gave
who
me-
you were,
no.
or the baby, or
No.
anything. Didn't try to.
nothing.
Just money.
Yes.
Money exchange.
Cash.
Of course.
And
Cash
they
for-
gave me a pill. It was a Tylenol 3. So, I mean, it did nothing. And I remember sitting in the room, and there was about 8 exam rooms, and I saw the doctor going back and forth, and I was just numb. I can remember him. I can remember what he said. I can remember the room. I can remember where they walked me to in the back, in the mattresses, and the girls all around me crying. Many of them much younger. That time I was 28 years old. I was 28 years old. I had a child. I knew better.
Yeah.
But yet, when I reached out a hand, the only person that was there when I walked into that Planned Parenthood and realized, well, I can do this. I can have an abortion. I can't have this child.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't have the abortion at Planned Parenthood, it was actually worse.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. It doesn't matter, worse or not. I ended up at a Family Planning Associates. So
So the pressure of the world and your dreams.
Yes.
You didn't want to give it up, and
No.
then
could you
like so many-
imagine
no,
running construction crews at that age with AT&T being pregnant? I would have lost my job most likely.
Yeah, fear kicks in, and no
everything.
one's going to help, and
Yes.
but
That
that's-
poverty looked like that's going to be me. 2 children, no job. No, I'm not going down. Been down there.
That's where tons of people are now.
Yes.
I mean, still, it's
Yes.
really no
Tons.
different, and no one's helping out, and people, even as clinically sanitary as they want to call it, the people are still dying from abortions. And
Oh
so
my gosh,
it's-
still.
I mean, not to mention the child, obviously, who's
Yeah.
It was
Especially
dying.
nowadays. I mean, we could talk about it later, but in 22 states now, they followed, 19 states,
Yeah.
they have followed New York's law of aborting the baby up to the baby is delivered. And then if the baby, that little stinker, survives that abortion, well, the mother's already chosen. So we're just going to put it in a closet and let it die, or give it an injection and stop the baby's heart. So we are now a nation that has embraced infanticide. And so for me, remember, there was no God in my life. So I had nowhere to turn except to withdraw inside myself.
And they still try to normalize it though.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
That's the issue with it. It's like it's not really a kid, it's a fetus. They're using every word, every trick that they can, instead of just being honest with you and saying we can help you, and this could be an amazing pregnancy, and you can put it up for adoption, and the world could go on. But
there's this feeling that they didn't want to give you that warm, fuzzy feeling. I think they must think that because if they're very sterile and, and there's no warmth, that you're just going to go through this process and you're going to go out the back door.
This is like stitches if you get
and
a
go
cut.
back to normal.
Thanks a lot. See you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I went out the back door
You
and I say God has a sense of humor. I had a flat tire on my truck, on my car.
When you got out, it was flat.
Yes, it was flat. And so I was in extreme pain, and I sat on the curb and I, called AAA and come, I have a flat. And so while I was waiting, it was those 20 minutes that changed my life.
Wow.
Now, well, I basically just started, the pain was so bad. And then I realized it wasn't just the pain in my body, it was the pain in my heart and
Your soul,
my mind, my soul. It was just like I was just like rocking back and forth. And I sobbing actually turned into almost wailing. Like, what have I done? And I kept thinking of Christopher and how beautiful he is. And so anyway, that's where I said to God, they say that you never turn your back on us. I have a hard time to believe that. I don't know you. I've had a horrible life. It was just that moment of saying, so here I am, sort of saying, do you still love me?
Yeah.
And where do I go from here? And
His grace.
Bob, there he was. And when I was rocking, he was rocking me. Yeah. And it was that moment I realized, oh my God, what have I done? Who am I? How did I get here? There was a lot of other things that happened in that home that I lived in and grew up in, that I faced finally in the reality of why I was numb. And so I just said that the tow truck came, I got in the car. I didn't go back to the office. I went home and thought about what happened on the curb. But I didn't then stand up and go down a different path.
Right.
I actually went down a slippery slope where I almost lost custody of my son. I walked away from that job. I sold the house. The BMW was gone. I didn't care. I met a man, and he had a place out at the Colorado River, and he was a lot of fun, and I had money saved, and I didn't really care about what the future was. And so he said, let's get married. And I said, okay. And we did. And then he quit his job, and we just hit the road. And he was from Oklahoma. So we moved to Oklahoma City, and we moved in on Halloween. And that night I sat with my feet in the sink and looking down the road out the window, and I knew I was going to end my life.
Oh, wow.
And
so you were running all that time.
I was running.
You were running like crazy.
And it was by this
Literally
time, it was
and
almost a
figuratively.
year that I had been running with this man, and now married to a man I didn't know or love. And I'm in Oklahoma City, and it was the end of the road for me. And I realized when the sun started rising that I could take those pills or I could go to church. And by the grace of God, I went to church.
Wow.
And
talk about a
amazingly,
crossroads.
oh my gosh, in this little church that was 3 miles away, And at the end of the service, a woman, the pastor said, everybody sit down. Now, I have to tell you, being in that church, I wanted to claw my eyes out. Oh, yeah. I felt like I was so under attack. I was being screamed at in every part of my body to run. I was like, I couldn't get out fast enough. Snot nose sobbing.
Yeah. Well, it's the force of conviction right in front of you.
Right in front of me.
The truth just finally hits, but God drew you there, and you didn't run out.
I didn't run because at the end of that, when the pastor got up and said, "Sit down," I'm going, "Oh my gosh, no!"
That's the last thing I want to hear. Yeah.
And so I sat down, thinking I'm going to climb over the pews. I'm going to get out of here. And this woman gets up, and she doesn't mind if I use her name, but Barbara Chisco, and she said, "I run a pregnancy center, and we reach out our hand." And we help women that are facing an unplanned pregnancy. And on that curb behind that abortion clinic is exactly what I said. God, bring me one woman. If I can change her mind, I forgive myself. That was the words on the curb behind that Family Planning Associates. And a year later, that is the exact words that was spoken to me from God at that church.
And answered with this woman.
And I walked up to her and I said, I think I want to help. And that was the beginning of my 38 years in this movement. And I immediately started volunteering. I brought that model back to Southern California, took over a pregnancy center, opened up 2 more, took them medical because I'm a businesswoman and I knew that the only way we can win this battle is to create a competitive model to Planned Parenthood, get women out of Planned Parenthood and into pro-life, comprehensive women's healthcare clinics so she'd never have to darken the door for her health care at a Planned Parenthood or an abortion clinic.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And what do you guys, what is it that you, because I love the whole compassionate and comprehensive thing. I mean, and what you don't perform is abortions in your clinic, but you try to educate and love and just talk to the person and guide them because they know they're in an alternative place.
Yes.
And they have chosen it for one reason or the other.
Stumbled on it,
yeah. If somebody said something or texted them or whatever it is, and they end up with your beautiful staff and your people that actually care.
Yes.
And go through the difference, and this could be pretty graphic of what you went through.
Graphic.
And all the, the mattresses in the back and the screaming women and what, you did then and what now is called Obria, what you do now.
Right. Well, it was, I look back on my career. So by the way, too, when I came back to California, I decided to start my own company.
Okay.
So I did, and I ran that for 20 years, and it was in the biomedical device field, and I was a consultant and contractor for big medical device manufacturers. So it was successful. I started in my living room. I grew it.
Always the entrepreneur.
Always the entrepreneur. And on the side, well, by the way, there was a break. When I came back from Oklahoma, I felt like I had really did what I told God I was going to do. Right. I was going to care for women. I'd done it for 4 years. Now I'm back in California, the old California.
Yeah,
and I was like done.
Oklahoma and California, a little different.
Yeah. And so I was at this point saying, I'm going to start my company. It's going to take a lot of work. I'm going to work it in my house. I was even doing daycare for 2 other. By that time, I got pregnant again, and then my 3rd son. So by that time I had 3 boys. And I had one son before the abortion, and then I had 2 more. And my company was growing, and I was active in my church, and so were my children. And I really felt like I was getting in the groove.
Yeah, in the right direction anyway, yeah.
The sad part that the man that I married that I didn't know was very abusive.
Okay.
And
so he didn't come back with you to California, or he did?
He did.
Okay, so you both came back.
Yeah, well, we separated.
Okay.
And then he came back. I was going to stay in Oklahoma. He came and got me, and I just, I was pregnant. I mean, I just had, my middle son was 6 weeks old. When I came back to California, he was staying with me. I got pregnant again with my youngest. Right. And so I felt at this point, he became a stay-at-home dad, and I started my company and ran the pregnancy center. And so we were doing okay. Yeah. Business was taking on, and then it did. But
yet another but.
So we came back, and I got involved in our church, and I went to this women's retreat Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on Sunday night, he picked me up, brought me back home, and there was these boxes on the front porch. And I said to him, "What are you, moving out?" This was the days when I would hide in the bushes and get into a hotel with nothing, and then I'd go back home because I had nowhere else to go. And he was good for a while and so on and so forth. So I said, well, what are you moving on? Because I don't know what those are. But there was a white envelope, and I opened up the white envelope. It says, Kathleen. And it was the woman that was running the pregnancy center that I was helping raising money for. I was not working at the center. I was running my company, and said, Kathleen, I can't do it anymore. I put the 501c3 corporate papers in your name. I put the bank account in your name. There's $34 in the bank. The rent's due. I put the lease, the rental lease in your name. Here's all the files that were birth choice. And good luck. I'm moving to St. Louis. Oh, and I disconnected the phone and blah, blah, blah.
Thank you.
So I was so angry. And the theme of the retreat was sometimes God doesn't give you an option. Swear. It's like when he calls, Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I threw him in the closet. That was on Sunday night. Monday morning, I had my two babies, two more that I was babysitting. I'm exhausted. Women, we go to retreat, we talk a lot. Yeah. And so I'm feeding them and the phone rings. It's about 9:00. And this woman is screaming in the phone. You've got to help. I mean, she was screaming. I'm not going to scream, but you've got to help. My best friend is sending her 16-year-old daughter to Kansas to have a late-term abortion. She's 6 months pregnant. She's carrying a little girl. And that was Dr. Tiller's abortion clinic, by the way, who was later killed. Anyway, and I said, I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't know why. Stop screaming. And then finally I said, how did you get this number? Or what number did you call? Yeah. And she gave me the number of the pregnancy center. And I realized that Sue did not disconnect the phone. She forwarded it to my home. Yeah. And it was that call that got me back in this movement.
Really locked it in.
Yeah. That night I called people at the church. I said, we need to pray. So I went to the church that evening, expected there'd be a handful of people. The church was packed. Wow. It was a small church, and it was packed. And we prayed. We named that little baby Mary and that child. And I never spoke to that young girl, and I never spoke to that mother, and I never met that child. But God will show them one day that baby,
that prayer, what God stepped in,
what happened. And here we are today. I took those pregnancy centers, medical, and looked at the Planned Parenthood model. I closed my for-profit about 15 years later, and came full-time over into the ministry, and knew that if we were really going to make a difference and serve women and save babies from the atrocity of abortion, I needed to go over there full-time. And so then I realized I had to create a business model that a woman won't have to go into a Planned Parenthood like I did, and somebody will sit and talk to her and teach her and educate her on all three of her options, because two of them are life.
Yep.
Parenting, adoption, and abortion. Two of them are life. Yep. Being given to young women around the world in the pro-life movement, and just loving on them and telling them you have an option, you have a choice, and it doesn't have to be this one.
Can you explain what it would be like if I opened the door and walked into a place? Just tell me what it would be like if
a place like home. In other words, we wanted it to be a safe place for a woman, like she feels when she goes into her home. Hopefully, not always, but so it was a safe place, and we want her to feel like she's coming home. Mm. She's coming home, and in our heart, she's coming home to life. She's coming home to Christ. Yes. She's coming home to get off the slippery slope that she's been going down, and change her life. So what that means is the pro-life movement is reactive. Mm. We wait for them to get in an unplanned pregnancy, and then we show them an ultrasound. Nowhere in the country had anybody built a model that was proactive, going upstream and meeting those women where they're at. It's a proactive model. I want a name that doesn't mean anything so I could trademark it. Right. And we'll define it. And I always tell people, back when we went to Obria, there was another company just emerging, and it was called Uber.
Yes.
What does Uber mean?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was a great thing for me, because I would go to these lovely donors that love birth choice, because it was birth and it was choice, and what is Obria? And I'd say nothing. And I said, but
Neither was Uber.
I said, do you know this company called Uber? Well, of course. And I said, 5 years ago, you didn't know it.
You didn't know that word.
And 5 years from now, you're going to know Obria because we're going to define
amazing.
it as a safe place, a place that women feel like they can come home to, no matter what they've done in their past.
Yeah.
In our space, they will be loved. They will be taught forgiveness. They will be nurtured. They will be hugged if they want it,
Yeah.
And when we went to that model, I realized then doing so, we have to be a competitive model. And that's when we started comprehensive care, full women's comprehensive care. And to really compete. We do more services than Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood does no prenatal care.
So they don't have to be pregnant even.
No.
So they can come in and do other women things that I don't know what they are. But
Well, proactive means we want to get them off that slippery slope before they get into an unplanned pregnancy. So therefore, where we are today, we're taking we got a federal grant, a couple of federal grants.
Praise God, amazing.
And we got a Title V grant to take sexual risk avoidance education, sort of the new word of abstinence, into the public schools. In California, of course, we're fighting the California Healthy Youth Act. And we're going to fight it. And we've been challenged by Planned Parenthood and the ACLU. They will sue us. But you know what? I've already been sued.
My guess is the lawsuits will never stop coming.
And that's where we're at today.
Yeah.
Bring it on, especially since we've gotten all these federal grants.
So you got the grants.
Yes.
Okay, so you I mean, in one respect, you're one of the only competitive things or the alternative things to Planned Parenthood. You're pretty small a little while ago.
Yes.
Right. Then you start to go national. You get these grants. What in the world is the media doing now? When you must be. Are you just under relentless attack? I mean, no one's saying what a hero.
Yeah.
You know, not on the left anyway.
No. I mean, I could say this. Just Google Kathleen Bravo, Eaton Bravo.
I'm scared to. I only want to look at your Obria page.
Or Google Obria, Obria Medical Clinics. You'd get an idea. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. From the New York Times to the Washington Post to Politico to Jezebel to ones I'd never heard of.
Well, all the loser publications.
Yes, the loser. And I am the most evil.
Evil to save a life. Evil to help a woman.
And we've also, I'm one of those women too, coming from, learning everything you can on a woman's body.
Yep.
And that's how I've changed it, to understand and teach them how beautifully they're made.
Yes.
By the way,
Sacred.
there's right now somewhere between 30 and 40%. I'm assuming it's 40%. It was 30% in 2017. That millennial women are going off of hormonal contraception because it's a carcinogen and it pollutes their body and they want to save the world.
Right. Purity.
And it's been such an interesting thing because Planned Parenthood's big service, of course, is abortion and hormonal contraception, making sure that eventually, because she's going to, this protects her to continue down that slippery slope, that but eventually she get pregnant and then they'll come back to us and we'll have an abortion. That's sort of their model. It's just this circle.
Whatever I can do to destroy all of you.
So we broke it and said, we don't do hormonal contraception and IUDs. We don't destroy a pregnancy as early as in the womb.
Right.
We rejoice, we bless it. We're blessed about it. So what we do is we're now embracing a very fertility education, fertility apps. 40% of millennials have gone on fertility apps, gone off hormonal contraception, and God is just answering so many issues. And so what happens to a woman when she's studying an app and sees how her body is made and how this beautiful process that God has created in women, and now they understand it. And guess what they do? They want to protect it.
They make decisions to protect.
High school girls, 30 to 40% of high school girls now are saying they're not having sex in high school. Now, we'll take every nudge we can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we moved even further to a holistic care clinics that is not anything in the old school, but bringing them into this new respecting your body, respecting your fertility, protecting your fertility, talking to them about what are your dreams in life. Well, they will, no matter what we hear, they want to meet the right guy, want to go to college, meet the right guy, get married, have children. And we said, well, if you keep going down this slippery slope of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you're
going to crash like sex,
every
drugs,
kind of
and rock
sex you can imagine. The sad thing is, we talked about the California Healthy Youth Act, and the program there is being taught by Planned Parenthood, written by the LGBTQ, and being enforced by the ACLU in California. and it is
Full
pornographic.
Onslaught. Full onslaught, yeah.
Oh,
is that
my
the
gosh.
triple X sex triple ed thing that I'm hearing about?
Yeah, it's I don't even know what the name of it is, but it's the program that's being taught. But praise God, and I'm putting a shout out to all those people listening that are parents and grandparents of children in California. Had enough. They saw the curriculum. They've seen the videos of
it's the showing it to kindergartners and 6-year-olds.
Right now
and
we're
it's
at
oral
4th
sex
grade, but it's oral sex, it's anal sex, and men and men, women and women. It doesn't matter. It's all inclusive. It's
no right and wrong, nothing.
Gender equality. There's no right and
no
wrong.
Moral standard.
And finally, school districts are now, the parents are storming the school boards, and the teachers don't want to teach it. And guess what? So we've end up getting 2 grants from President Trump.
Yes.
One is Title V abstinence education in California and Washington, and the other one is teen pregnancy prevention, which is more of a research arm, but also going in and instructing young people about their bodies, about sex, and protecting their fertility, protecting their health.
Yes.
I mean, look at the increase in STDs too
STDs
that
and
we thought were going.
and,
Suicides. Number one killer of teens is suicide.
I know.
Huge.
Something the left is doing is not working.
Syphilis.
Something that
It's
they're trying
not
to
working.
fire hose them with crap is not actually working unless their goal is to kill people.
And that's where we are. So you see, I just have to say this. I look back and I laugh because I see God moving. It's sort of, I watched a cog go into his plan. You know, we end up with the most pro-life president ever in the world. We end up with Supreme Court justices that are pro-life. We end up with Obria going national. Now we're in 7 or 8 states. We have 48 clinics growing. I just got a call from New York City. Pray for us.
New York City.
4 clinics in New York City.
Yes.
Chicago, Minneapolis. I mean, it is just growing.
It's growing.
And what that cog, that last one was, a pro-life president, a pro-life House and Senate, pro-life Supreme Court. Maybe we'll get the House. We have a group that's gone national, a national brand. Obria is now known. President Trump and Vice President Pence get our white paper describing where the pro-life movement was, where it is, where it needs to go. They're blown away. They call. Next thing you know, I get a grant. I thought we were just really special, but actually, because we were national at a grant. And here we are. So we got Title X was taken away from Planned Parenthood. They turned it back because of
seemingly
Trump's,
impossible. Seemingly impossible. The road we were headed down. It just seemed like there's no way that's
first time in 50 years a pro-life faith-based organization got Title X funding. Now people say, "Well, don't take federal money." You know, it's federal money to pay for services. It does take away from the fact that we can preach. We just can't use that money to do our beginnings and our parenting and our post-abortive healing. It is money to expand our brand.
Which is weird that you can't preach because they're preaching. Everyone's preaching. It's just ridiculous.
Of course, we can preach. We just can't spend that money.
Right.
So anyway, to make a long story short, we got Title X. Next thing we know, the California Healthy Youth Act comes. We get Title V and TPP, Teen Pregnancy Prevention, and we train everybody in sexual risk avoidance education. It's avoiding sex, protecting your body, empowering their mind, body, and spirit to become who they can be. And all of a sudden, Obria is going nose to nose with Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood comes after us. And Trump said, "Okay, Planned Parenthood, you want Title X, you got to move your abortions out of that facility. If you're well woman care, you cannot do abortions there." And therefore, Planned Parenthood said, "We don't want the money." And they blamed me, and
Good
we're the only pro-life group.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, by the way.
I'm going to put a challenge to everybody who's listening that Trump said, and HHS said, Trump fought this battle for the Protect Life rule in Title X so that Christian organizations like Obria can step into the fight and get that funding, and nobody else did, nobody did but me. It's all right. I'll carry the load. I've been beat up. My head's been chopped off. It's okay. But I'm praying that next year when the next cycle comes out, I want to see every pro-life group and faith-based organization
writing those grants, getting those papers.
Those grants. It is phenomenal. And
it's only fair. I mean, why not have alternatives? I would think that's the whole point of the democracy. It's like, okay, they can do that, I guess, but we should have equal pay. funding on
Absolutely.
the other side. Well, and let the public decide
Right.
what they want to do, and let them be properly educated so they can choose and not be tricked or marketed to, but just here's the real information.
Absolutely.
And then you choose. It's still your choice, right? But we
Say
want
that again, because that's so important.
it really is, right? Because
Yes.
and the left is incredibly tricky. Satan, I would say, is
Yes.
really tricky with words. Pro-choice. When do you ever have a choice to kill someone else? But they put it into the body, and then they come up with all kinds of terms
Yes.
that lure you to the other way, which is why they probably don't ever show ultrasounds. Because I hear that if a woman sees an ultrasound with a baby, she's like 80% more likely to not
Right.
have an abortion. Why don't they want to let her know? See, there's a trick that's deep trickery.
Trick. It is. And if you think about even abortion, they call it reproductive
Right.
health.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing.
You don't
Health,
even. We want. We need that money for for reproductive health. Reproductive.
it's not healthy.
That's abortion.
Yeah, of course
That's
it
their
is.
words now. They're not saying the word anymore. It's
Because
abortion.
because if we're really honest, you don't grow up when you're a 5-year-old girl and want to be a princess. You don't go, I can't wait to have sex and abort my kid, and not. No one thinks that.
Right.
So you have to be in a bad state and be lured somewhere to get there.
Absolutely.
Right? Things have to happen to you like they did to you
Yes.
and lots of all these other ladies. They feel like they're trapped, and then the guy's ringing the bell. I'll take care of you with reproductive health.
Yes.
Oh, that's healthy.
Yes.
And then they go in.
I'll put the
and
money
get
out
slaughtered.
because, we don't
Yeah.
want to have a child. That wasn't in the deal here. It was purely sex. You
Yeah.
should have taken care of
Yeah.
it. And there is a lot of now big federal grants, Christian grants that are switching over to 3 issues because they believe that it's these 3 issues that are destroying our nation.
Absolutely.
And that is abortion, human trafficking, and pornography.
Yeah.
And I've been part of the human trafficking task force here in California, and we work with them around the country because those girls,
Yes.
of course, we want them to come into our clinics and be tested and loved on. Pornography, we all know that
It's
we don't.
killer.
The statistics are girls and boys.
I know.
Everybody thinks it's young
No,
men. It is
it's
not.
like 30-40% of the
Yes,
girls. I know.
30 to
It's-
40% of young women, and then of course abortion.
Yeah.
And so we have a fight in front of us.
Yeah.
But
Well, you can
these,
see how it all
these are
working
so
together,
linked.
right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you see how it's all working together. You have these pervert weird guys putting pictures
Yep.
on because they know it's all on the phone. So the person gets the phone. He's a 15-year-old boy. He sees it. He gets his mind starts getting messed
Yes.
up. He sees a girl, sees her as an object, has sex with her because she's doing the same thing. And then, of course, now they want to have an abortion. And then if the one is cast aside and her parents don't want her, she runs away and she's in human trafficking.
Absolutely.
Inside the whole thing. It's a vicious circle, and you can see how it all works together.
I know. It's
it's-
sometimes I think, okay, God, I just can't do this anymore. But the
One at a
one thing
time.
I do is because I was a businesswoman, I started this little company, as I shared, a for-profit in my home, and I went up against some of the largest advertising and marketing companies.
Yeah.
Ended up, in the biomedical field. They market all of their new devices and so on and so forth, and all the instruction sheets, everything that has to be done, and that's where God put me. Funny
You're
thing
used
is,
to the professional
and
fight.
then I would go in, say, for example, one of these big companies, they would buy out other medical device,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would go in and I would change them to the brand of
Right,
their new.
right.
And I think to myself, okay, God, I'm in biomedical. I understand clinical trials. I'm in the clean rooms. I'm doing R&D with medical device,
Yep.
and so I've got this medical background because everybody says, are you a doctor or a nurse? I said, no.
I just know everything about all that.
And then
equipment.
I become their rebranding
Yep.
person, and my company goes in and, these everything from their instruction sheets and their marketing,
Yep.
advertising, their chipboard boxes, all has to be rebranded. Fast forward, God brings me into the pro-life movement because of my abortion.
Yes.
And by the way, I've named my son Toby.
Okay.
And so because of my son Toby, he's waiting for me in heaven. And I'm thinking to myself, well, nothing I did is what's going to fit here.
Yeah.
And every bit of it fit. The medical side, understanding the medical field in the marketing side, and branding. We now have rebranded all of these clinics
Tell me
from
that's not
old
God's
names.
providence
It's so
into
God.
just like every line of the
Yeah,
way.
so it's just sometimes we think God isn't using us, even when we're broken.
Yeah.
God's using us.
Oh, that's probably when he uses us
doesn't
the
turn
most,
his
I
back
think,
on us.
is
Yeah.
when we are broken and weak.
Yes.
So,
Where do we go from here?
like, that's my question. You said where are we going? What is
Mm-hmm.
the next level? What is it that, here's a good way to put it. What is it that Christians, the churches, because, it's so politicized now.
Yes.
And we have signs up that don't work, and we're yelling, both sides are yelling at
Yes.
each other. foolish to me. But what is it that, from your insight, that we can do to enter these conversations and to really change this into not a movement, but this is normal, and Planned Parenthood is the thing off to the side?
So I sort of shared about the fact that, God has put every piece in place for such a time as this. And that is our theme.
Right.
In everything we do now is for such a time as this. God brought it all to a place and we were ready. I mean, as I shared years ago when someone suggested to go national, take what you've developed here in California, Kathleen, it needs to go national. And I said, no. And I told God, no. The pro-life movement, we have a tendency not to work closely with each other.
Right.
We're very territorial, which is really, really sad. And I thought, I'm going to be beat up by Planned Parenthood, and I'm really not going to be liked by pro-life if I sort of raise my head up. It's kind of whack-a-mole,
Yeah.
And so I said no until I said, God, show me a big audacious wow that it's you, and I'll do it. And he threw him up against the wall and said, okay, here you go. And I got a $2.5 million donation. And now if that's not...
It's a loudspeaker. That's a loudspeaker.
So we formed that vision strategy committee to move forward. So what I have done is I watch Planned Parenthood and we look at what they're doing. I get their year-end, you can download it online, their year-end report.
Right.
I look at where their money's going, what they're doing. And guess what came out in 2015? In 2015, Planned Parenthood developed something called a telemedicine app.
Right.
I'm thinking, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And of course, realized that the Obamacare originally came out. It was really for people like me. Instead of going in waiting for your blood pressure. I mean, I'm not on any of that, thank God. But you just go online and you connect to this app, and a nurse comes up and she does questions and vitals, and then she calls you a prescription from your home. Well, guess who jumped on that? Planned Parenthood. Could you imagine if they could reach those women on an app right where they're at, in their safe place, in that bedroom in their home?
In the privacy of
And what else came just before that? RU46.
Yeah.
Now, please understand, RU46 is not the morning after pill. It is an abortion pill. 86 illegal sites are dispensing it in this country, according to the Charlotte Lozier Institute. Planned Parenthood has jumped on board. They created their own telemedicine app called Planned Parenthood Direct. Girl gets on there 24/7. Nurse comes up. She says, I just missed my period. I'm 5 months. The nurse, they ask her questions. They said, okay, no problem. We're going to dispense the pill. Right now, half of the states in this country use telemedicine to dispense the RU46 pill. So that girl goes home to her safe place, to her bedroom, takes that pill. 72 hours later, takes another set of pills and aborts that baby in her bathroom and flushes it down the toilet. Right now, in some states like Iowa, 74% of first trimester abortions are being done by the pill. Nationally, it's hitting 50%. Actually, Reuters in 2017 said the abortion pill is going nose to nose against surgical abortion. Planned Parenthood jumped on it. They have 3 apps now. They have Planned Parenthood Direct, where they get a nurse and they dispense the pill. They have Planned Parenthood Care, which girl can call in and get her STD testing in a box. It comes to her house. She goes back in. You see what's happening. Yes. Not only are young people everything, they have their relationship skills are gone because everything they do is on their computer or their iPhone. Planned Parenthood has become that face on that iPhone. And then their third one is Fertility App. Now you wonder why, because the Fertility App came out of the pro-life movement. Well, because they did too realize that 40% of millennials, and it's going to grow, are moving away from hormonal contraception. And sure enough, in 2017, their year-end report, they had a 30% drop in their contraceptive money.
Sure.
So they they built fertility and said, we still want to keep them because we'll teach them our fertility app. And eventually that cycle, just like on hormonal contraception, will end up pregnant and they'll come to us for abortion. This is the cycle we need to break.
What is which is
online. And guess what? In 2017, Obria launched Obria Direct, the only pro-life telemedicine app in the country where a girl can download the app, talk to a pro-life nurse, get her off that slippery slope, get her into our, yes, we're not going to dispense pills.
Sure.
And but what we're going to do is, people say, well, you're not really meeting what she's looking for. And she says, you all think she really is looking for an answer, but the answer is not always pills and
looking for
drugs
love
and
and
abortion.
care,
She's
direction.
looking for somebody
Yeah.
to say you're okay.
Yeah.
If we're not on that app,
Yep.
so our digital marketing.
So that's got to be a huge step for you guys.
In fact, we're going to finish out this year with development, and in January, our whole focus is going to be another app. We want a fertility app.
Yep.
They're expensive, but we're going to do it. We created this one, $2 million.
Yep.
Young Christian,
that
developers. Oh yeah, no, we did it for $2 million.
Yeah.
Theirs was 22 million. Planned
Okay.
Parenthood, but we did the same. But we get Christian developers,
Sure.
these young guys.
Yep.
So bottom line is today. Now you can see where the pregnancy resource centers with the ultrasound and the diapers and formula are wonderful, and they're
Sure.
a point out there. But young women, every
not-
one
they're
of
not
them are
walking
talking.
in. Yeah.
They're not walking
They're not
in.
walking in.
And we're kind of playing games with it in our movement instead of realizing, like, okay, let's just have this really sort of come to Jesus
Just everybody
moment
work together and get it done.
and say,
Yeah.
we got to get on. We're only going to meet them. And it's going to grow. Today, 97%. Think about this. 97% of first trimester abortions in Europe are done by the pill. 97%. We will be there. I believe we'll be there by 2022, if not earlier.
If you guys don't get the funding and all the other people don't step up and man up and get
We
in the
don't.
game,
Then we're going to fall behind, and there's nothing we can do. 86% of millennial women say, 86%, I want my healthcare online. I want that first point of contact.
Yep.
And if the pro-life movement is not there,
yes,
they've won. And that's what Planned Parenthood was banking on. That's what the abortion pill, people selling them, these websites coming from Europe, 86 of them controlling this movement of the abortion pill. If we're not there, we might as well pack up and go home.
I agree. I always thought through this thing. I just don't get the motive of the other side. It just must be money.
Money.
That's the only thing I can think of. There's a power in money, because who really wants this?
And they
who wants
actually
to lead people to kill their babies and just rock on and make their money?
And they make more money from the pill
Oh, I'm sure.
than they do from a surgical abortion.
I'm sure they're going to make trillions of dollars off
absolutely.
this horrible.
And that's where we are today.
Yeah.
And thank God. So that last cog was Obria Direct. It's an app. Download it. Share it. Everybody share it with young women to know.
Donate, build,
right.
Yeah.
And there's great fertility apps out there. And between the fertility apps that moves them beyond this hormonal contraceptive and polluting your bodies, but into protecting your fertility to have babies in the future, but also an app where a nurse can talk to her. Look, we have an app that we can put up 24/7. The problem is you got to staff
have the people. Gotta have the
and
people
we don't
to
have the
answer,
funds.
right.
So we're doing it during
You'll
the
get
day
there.
when the clinics are open, but every little bit that comes in, then we get one more of our 48 clinics will be up on telemedicine in 7 states. Hopefully, our goal is 200 brick and mortar clinics attached to a telemedicine site, driving them to any place in the state. I can drop my telemedicine app in any zip code anywhere in this country right now.
Amazing. You have been a protector of your mom in a way. You've been a protector of your kids. Now you're protecting women and the unborn.
Yes.
You're a true blessing and a true warrior. We do one thing that we call the one thing in 1 minute.
Yes.
So you look at that camera and from the heart you go, here's the one thing in 1 minute.
Here is the one thing in 1 minute. First of all, pray, pray, pray. We are going into the schools here in California and Washington to challenge in California the California Healthy Youth Act. We know we will be sued by the ACLU and will be attacked by Planned Parenthood. And we're okay with that. We are warriors. Today, every one of my staff people, every one of my nurses and doctors are warriors in this fight. So we are going to take on the public schools in California and Washington. We're going to continue to grow our national brand of Obria, comprehensive women's healthcare clinics that does everything from, STD testing and treatment, well woman care, pap smears, blood draws, cancer screenings, prenatal care up to delivery. We are going to continue to grow that model for Christ. So if you're a warrior, and I pray to God every one of you are, because isn't that what God has called us to do, is to be disciples of today. And in today's culture, that means you're going to be hated, you're going to be attacked, you're going to be maligned, but just keep on walking. I get up every day, I put on the armor of Christ, I do not turn, it's the breastplate, it's not back, I can't turn and retreat. I'm asking you to march with us. Obria Medical Clinics need your help. All of what we're doing takes funding, all of what we're doing takes prayer, takes volunteers, And if you have a little bit that you can spare, send it to us. If you have time you can spare, come and be with us. If you're a medical professional and want to work and get paid, we paid well, in a pro-life organization, we need medical assistants, nurses, nurse practitioners, and pro-life doctors. So I can't do it alone. God's with me. God's with you. I promise that I will do this until God takes me home. I will continue to serve women and young men and to save women and babies and all the family members that will lose, so that no woman and no child will ever be destroyed by the atrocity of abortion. So God bless you.
Yeah, well said. Make sure you go to obria.com. Is it
Obria.com,
Yeah,
obria.org.
And hit the donate button.
Yes.
Such a special time with you. Thank you so much. We'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
next time on the Bub and Bob Show. Later.
Bye.
Wow.